Open the hood of a new car today, and you'll find a machine defined less by its pistons and valves than by the hundreds of millions of lines of code running its internal network. Connectivity allows manufacturers to fix bugs while a car sits in your driveway, but a constant open connection to the cloud also exposes the vehicle to remote hacking, malicious code injection, and unauthorized data theft. To counter this, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe enacted stringent cybersecurity regulations. Mandates like R155 and R156 forced automakers to secure vehicle architectures from the initial design phase all the way to the scrapyard. Protecting the public from cyber terrorism required a digital firewall inside every new vehicle. That mandate dictated a new architecture of isolation, changing who and what the vehicle is allowed to trust. Starting around 2018, manufacturers deployed physical roadblocks deep within the car's hardware. Systems like Volkswagen's SFD, introduced with the Golf 8, placed a cryptographic lock directly between the physical diagnostic port and the car's internal network. This zero-trust security model severed the connection independent mechanics relied on for decades. Without specific authorization, their diagnostic scanners are now blocked from reading vital data or executing basic repair commands. To clear an error code or calibrate a steering sensor, mechanics must now pay subscription fees to third-party broker platforms. They have to submit credentials online and wait for a manufacturer's central server to verify them before receiving a temporary digital token to unlock the car. To avoid these fees and delays, some repair shops resort to tearing apart dashboards and using bypass cables to physically route around the gateway. However, if that vehicle is involved in an accident, insurers can flag these unauthorized modifications and refuse to pay out claims. When every diagnostic command requires a paid unlock token from a manufacturer's server, the security architecture functions as a regulatory barrier. This infrastructure shifts the repair economy toward a centralized model, where independent shops must pay for the privilege of accessing the vehicles they were hired to fix. This conflict moved from local garages to national legislatures, forcing lawmakers to answer a critical question. When a connected car generates data, who actually owns it? In the United States, independent repair advocates supported the Repair Act to guarantee direct access to vehicle data. But after intense lobbying by automakers citing safety and hacking risks, the legislation was heavily diluted, leaving mechanics dependent on manufacturer-controlled platforms. The European Union took a different approach. The EU Data Act legally required manufacturers to provide fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory access to data. This policy paved the way for a practical solution known as the SERMI certification framework. SERMI eliminates the need for a mechanic to register with every car brand individually. Instead, an independent national trust center vets the technician and issues a single digital certificate directly to a smartphone app. To unlock a car, they scan a dynamic QR code, verifying their identity instantly. By standardizing the security handshake through a third party, the EU demonstrated that it is possible to protect a vehicle's network without granting the manufacturer total control over the repair process. But policy alone cannot open a firewall. For a system like SERMI to function inside the vehicle, engineers had to rip out the underlying language of automotive diagnostics and start over. SOVD replaces the old UDS standard, using modern web APIs to turn car parts into digital services. This enables role-based access control, assigning specific permissions to individual blocks. A technician can modify the radio, while the vehicle blocks access to the brakes. Permissions are granular. The industry is moving away from primitive, all-or-nothing physical lockdowns. By applying these software-defined permissions, vehicles can selectively trust external mechanics without exposing their most sensitive safety systems. Yet, a structural vulnerability remains. Current systems still rely on centralized cloud servers to issue those digital permissions. A centralized server acts as a single point of failure. If the automaker's cloud crashes under a cyber attack, or if a vehicle breaks down in an area with zero cellular service, the mechanic cannot authenticate. The car remains locked, and the repair is impossible. To eliminate this bottleneck, researchers are developing an infrastructure that requires no central server, relying instead on decentralized identifiers and blockchain technology. Without a central server, the authentication process moves to the vehicle itself. A direct encrypted link forms between the diagnostic scanner and the car's internal computer, verifying credentials locally through a peer-to-peer connection. This local authentication uses zero-knowledge proofs to verify authority without calling a manufacturer's home office. By removing the central bottleneck, the power to fix a vehicle is returned to the physical point of repair. This decentralized approach also generates a permanent record of the vehicle's history. Every diagnostic action or part swap is hashed and written to a distributed blockchain ledger. Because a blockchain requires network consensus to alter past entries, these common frauds, such as rolling back digital odometers or hiding the fault codes from a major collision, become mathematically impossible. This transparency does not require sacrificing privacy. Zero-knowledge proofs confirm that a mechanic had the correct authorization to fix the car without ever exposing the technician's personal data or tracking the physical location of the driver. The transition toward decentralized, trustless networks suggests that security and open repair are not opposing goals. When the authentication logic is transparent and local, the owner regains control over their vehicle's data without sacrificing its defense against outside threats.